Hello and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis, and today I'm very grateful to be joined by Dale Holmes again, this time in person. He's not in his van this time, so I'm looking forward to delving into the Agenda 2030 plans that Bendigo have mapped out. These documents are readily available. We're going to put them in the show notes down the bottom. Without any further ado, Dale, let's roll into these documents and we'll go through a step-by-step guide as to what they're doing here and how this is going to be mapped out not only for Bendigo but for the world. And Bendigo is definitely and Victoria is definitely a testing centre for this. So Dale, take it away and let's roll into it.
Straight in, mate.
Yeah, let's go.
It's a bit weird doing it in person.
A little bit.
All right. So Nath, you asked me. Obviously, we were going over the Agenda 21, and I'd say most people know about this now, and I think we said before about how far will this go, and I think that's a little bit determined on us.
Yeah.
Because as with some of these Bendigo Council documents, they talk about collaboration with the public, and they actually have had a couple of community seminars and shit. And I think last time I left, I think they had one 2 days after below. So it would be awesome to go down and actually see one of these, because it's unbelievable. If you look at Agenda 21, Bendigo Council's on every part of it, and then some. So I guess I first come across Agenda 21, and then I started seeing all the connections in Bendigo, and it was around 2010. It was when they started putting the green light bulbs in. Remember?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I didn't know what it was back then, but
and they were doing it for our football club, and we were getting our football club, and they did it to all community clubs. You probably were you playing footy? Oh, you might be a bit young, but anyway, they did them everywhere, and they're basically paying the football club. You get $1 or whatever for every light bulb.
Yeah, right.
And then so that we found out these first of all, they don't save energy. And I started realizing anything that's got smart on front of it is not good. And the light bulb's a whole other thing, and that's they're actually transmitter and receivers, and they're all connected to the smart grid. I remember they got rid of all the old light bulbs. You could only get these fucking shit light bulbs.
You had to recycle them. They had people coming to your house and stuff. Yeah,
and they're actually terrible for the environment.
I was very young,
so they got mercury in them, but. Yeah, and then the same time, Bendigo actually became, I've mentioned this many times, it was the first place in the world to have mandatory smart meters. So they rolled them out in California. Victoria was straight after, but within Victoria, Bendigo was the first in the whole. So we're the first in the world, and then Bendigo was chosen city to be the first in the world to mandate smart meters. And we went away for the weekend, come home, fucking the meter was on like this. Because we don't have it. And I had a mate that actually, he still doesn't have one. And he's kept saying no, because it's actually on the back part of his property.
Yeah.
And he won't allow them on. So, but anyway, so I started seeing that. And then as time went on, it's great because Bendigo Council puts up all these documents. So the first one, are you going to edit these onto here later? Or we'll just put them in the show notes.
Let's put them in the show notes. People can read them.
There's so many of these, but if anyone wants to go onto their local council page, there's just so many documents. The first, I'll just say that Bendigo is ICLEI city.
Yeah.
What's the ICLEI freaking acronym? Local government sustainability. So it's basically sustainability through local councils. The other thing I was learning that obviously people would know, Agenda 21 it's run by the UN, but it's pushed out through local government. And I would say these local councillors, most of them would have no fucking idea about what the agenda is. They're pushing through onto the documents they've already signed on. So they did one. This one was released early this year or end of last year. Greater City of Bendigo Climate Collaboration. And so they're talking about net zero in Bendigo by 2030. I'm talking zero carbon emissions.
We are the carbon.
I'll just quickly go through the goals here. So
have a look at the goals.
I was trying to see who the collaborators are, but it was basically like Vic Road. Here we go, Bendigo Council, RACV, obviously with the road connection, CVGT, and that's with all the equity sort of stuff that's been pushed through. Job networks, Bendigo Community Group,
Colvin Water,
Bike Central, Colvin Water. and Bendigo Bank. And Bendigo Bank they're the same thing. They're absolutely signed on to every part of this. But so their goals are just mental.
It's nuts, yeah.
Renewable energy. How can we move to 100% clean energy by 2030? So these are like what the Albanese government got down to 43% reduction of emissions by 2030. Bendigo wants 100% clean energy. How do we move beyond petrol? So no petrol cars by 2030 in Bendigo. And as you can see with the flooding that's just happened too, like I know people that had farm in Rochester, and it's basically flooded all the outer regions around Bendigo, hasn't it?
Yep.
And that's a big one of get people off the land. How can we eliminate concepts of waste by 2030? How can we change our food systems? We know all this shit from the WEF and create zero carbon buildings. So Bendigo Bank, who's one of the signing on to this, they already went, I think it was about 2007, they built a whole new smart building. And them, along with Anglicare Victoria and other businesses, and you can see that they push all the LGBT stuff, that they started making these smart buildings. And if you can see the smart building, Bendigo Bank, have you been in there? The big,
yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
So it's just a huge open area, and now there's only about 15% of workers in there because they're all staying at home. And they all went onto the flexible working hours about 3 or 4 years before the before the pandemic. And what we'll show later is what they want to do is create all these buildings that are going to become residential real estate. But the reason you need the open building is you need connectivity of devices. And so they're building the Bendigo Hub now, which is a council building.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's going to be another smart building. And I did put one. Did I put one in for the Bendigo Education Plan?
No, you didn't, but we can add that.
I'll quickly mention. So Bendigo Education Plan, it was done when Ron Lake was head of Bendigo Senior Secondary College.
I was in high school back then, so I was part of it.
Yeah, it was. So I think the early plans were 2001, 2002, and they rebuilt.
Yeah.
So it was a huge Labor government initiative.
From 07 to 09.
That's when they started rebuilding. But so they've continued to remodel the Bendigo Education Plan every year. And if you go back to Dr. Richard Day, it says schools will become the hub of the community.
Yeah. And
kids will spend longer in schools and learn nothing. So that was 1969. And it's the same thing, big open learning centers. All the teachers hate them because it's too much noise.
Yeah.
Bendigo's got one of the highest autism populations in the country.
I didn't know that.
And it's a shocking learning environment with too much stimulation for the kids with autism. And this, at the same time, the Labor government was paying teachers over 55 to retire, giving them packages, and they were flooding. They lowered the enter score for education, and they were flooding with new teachers because they were pushing this new model of teaching with the Bendigo Education Plan. And we actually took it from Canberra first. So it was being done in Canada.
Yeah.
Then it got implemented in Canberra, and then Bendigo. And this is where they did the 7 to 10 schooling.
That's right. Yeah.
So all the schools in Bendigo are 7 to 10 mostly, except for a couple of the private schools. And then there's 11, 12 school. Senior. And I think that's even part of it too, because like if you want, like, you know, you start at 7, you have more of a community, and you see the progression of adolescents becoming adults. Whereas it's, I don't know. I just thought about why would they do that? Because they did implement that in Canberra and here, of 2 places.
Interesting that you put Canada in there too. For those that are in Canada, Australia and Canada are very, very much the same. The same level of tyranny applies in both countries. They're
probably almost outdone. So anyway, the Bendigo Education Plan was smart boards.
Yes, it was.
They were already preparing for all the devices now that the kids are being taught on. And there was a bit of negative feedback based on one of the reports I saw, and one of the main things was the privacy issue. And I'm like, how's there a privacy issue in an education plan? And it was based on saying the interconnectivity devices and the kids will be spied on.
Unreal.
We'll leave that.
Yeah. So the next document, Sydney Morning Herald.
So now I put in, so this was in 2019, and the title of the document is called Ring Girls Are Out of Battle in the Bendigo Belt. Now you go, how does this relate to Agenda 21? So this is how cunning the Bendigo Council is. So if you know Agenda 21, a large part of it is about so-called equity, not equality, but equity, because they want to bring in quotas and stuff. And you know, it's all about like destroying the family, destroying culture.
Yep.
So we've had the boxing ring girls for forever and a day, right? They walk around. They don't even wear bikinis anymore. They just wear, I think they wear like like dresses that you'd go out like at night.
Yep,
like,
they do.
Anyway, and the girls get paid good money and they want to do it. They're just models. And so this is how cunning, this is how the Bendigo, they do it. So Bendigo Council sponsors the boxing event. They pay for it.
Yep.
So they put in a bid to get this Jeff Horn Michael Zarafa fight.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I went. It was a great night. And then so what they do, they pay for it. Then when about 3 days before it's about to come out, after they knew the councillors have come out and said, we think this is degrading towards women. We don't want this to happen, blah, 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 blah. And they banned the ring girls. And then I went to the event and they got the guys to go up and do it. And everyone's booing the guys.
I was overseas when
it's just the way that this is how they manipulate a story, make it look like an authentic story, but it's actually it was manipulated by the council because they fund the event. I can't remember.
What was the bottom part of that article there? It's like said stereotypes this nature were not respectful of women.
Yeah, not respectful towards it. Yeah, so that's just one example of how they influence culture because they've got the funding behind. So that was the councillor Yvonne Wrigglesworth, and I did a short video. Do you remember when we had the council election?
Oh, it was last year.
Yeah. And I went through, and you have no choice in this city. Every single Bendigo councillor, all they talk about is green Bendigo, smart, all the smart stuff, and equity. Every single council member, and it's the most left wing Marxist council you've ever seen.
Yeah. I remember that video while you're getting that up. I remember that video. You had the piece of paper that they send the election.
Yeah, I wish I still had it.
They had the people on, and you went through and you picked all their Agenda 21, Agenda 23 buzzwords, and there was only like one or two that were
it's like a talking
okay to vote for.
So
unbelievable.
All right, the next one. So this is going back quite a while. This is 2017, but I think it happened in 2015. So people they put a mosque in Bendigo. They announced they're going to build a biggest mosque in the Southern Hemisphere. The Muslim population in Bendigo, it's grown a little bit, but back then it was next to nothing. We had got a few Afghanis, and they had a mosque out the Latrobe Uni. That's the prayer room.
Yeah.
So they're going to build one, but then they found out it's actually Wahhabist funded and all this, and it's all orchestrated.
Is it on a key ley line?
Well, it's just out here. I don't know.
Well, yeah.
But it still hasn't got. So they were going, and this is part of Agenda 21 too, is to denationalize the country, have no, not that I'm a patriot, but like to what is Australia? You just keep flooding with immigrants. And it was when the Syrian war was going on.
Yeah.
And the council had planned to bring a lot of Syrians in. As Bendigo Council said they're going to bring in Ukrainian.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, so people might remember this guy, Blair Cottrell, United Patriots Front. I think he's an ASIO asset and the whole thing. So they were orchestrating these big protests in Bendigo, and it was making national news. And I didn't know anyone in Bendigo that actually went to these events.
Neither did I.
They'll bust in. The left wing activists, the right, they'll all bust in. And then Blair Cottrell's chopped the head of a fake pig at the front of the Bendigo Council.
That's right. Yeah, I was dead asleep when this happened, and I knew that it wasn't locals at these things.
And this was the early hallmarks of what they are now calling right-wing extremists.
Yep.
So they were already pre-prepping this, and this is part of the Strong Cities network that is not just Melbourne. It's the city, the Greater Victoria, or the state of Victoria, is part of Strong Cities, and one of the key parts of Strong Cities is quashing what they call populism or right-wing extremism. Oh, there's that. What's this one?
So one trip to China. Our council frequently visits China. We get students from Latrobe in from China. Locals will know this, but we get a lot of our council is frequently tripping to China.
I'm not sure they have since the pandemic, but this is from the Bendigo Advertiser.
Yeah, pre-2020, our council would probably once or twice a year go to China.
So it says Bendigo Council way up trip to China, and it's got a picture of Margaret O'Rourke, the former mayor there. Now I went to a couple of council meetings, and at the time there were questions from the public because there was multiple councillors that were doing trips to China, and they were basically questioning what they're doing there and who was paying for these trips, and they said that they paid out of their own
tax
or whatever it was.
The tax was paying for
it. But anyway, this came out, and then through Latrobe University, so that Bendigo's Latrobe's got a sister sister school
Yes.
in China, and they were sending Chinese students over here
And we
and doing the early studies of the rollout of the smart city in Bendigo. Right?
Yeah.
So, and we know, like, what we've learned in America is a lot of these Chinese students, they're not Chinese students, they're Chinese intelligence assets.
Yes.
So they were, it's become quite clear, although Bendigo is a UN Agenda 21, the next layer down from the UN is it's really been implemented by China, and it shows the connection here of Bendigo and China. What was it? Oh, so I just put up. So they've been doing. So they got the smart city, smart suburbs development plans of Bendigo. This document's called Golden Square Urban Development Framework. So have you would have heard these ones recently? They talk about 15, 20-minute zones.
Yep.
And so what they did in Melbourne, remember they had the Burke Street.
Oh, the bloke running down the
car crashes.
Yeah.
And they're going, oh, and then after that, they started putting bollards up. And then after that, they started putting bike tracks in. They eventually, and the inner city Melbourne, they don't want no cars. In Bendigo, they didn't even need a terrorist attack. They just started putting bollards up in Bull Street. And Bull Street is a hub here because they got all the smart cells there. They went up the week the pandemic started.
Yes, they did.
They installed all the smart cells. And they've got the bollards up, and you've got a big LGBTIQ flag right out the front of the town hall, which is the Temple of Solomon there. But anyway, so Golden Square is the first to do the urban development, smart city, smart suburbs plan, and that they want to build high-rise or semi-high-rise small housing, right?
Apartment blocks too.
So it's the trial 15-minute city. I just want to.
You're right.
Oh no, I haven't got it there. I see another one. So when they brought in the lockout.
Lockout, yeah.
So I got a good story about it. So they brought in, when was it? 2000.
They brought the lockout in. I was only like 16, 2011, 2012, I think.
Yeah, so that was the lockout. So basically, Bendigo had a thriving nightlife when I started. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. When I started going out, there was multiple clubs, multiple bars, and they were quite spread out throughout the city.
Yeah, we had heaps.
And then, so what I found out, and I found this out through local police, they started locking people up. I got locked up in the peak of this period. I ran in front of a cop car and did like a heel quick, and he's like, in the back. And then I went into the cell, and there was about 25 blokes in the cell that night. And that doesn't happen. And so what they were doing is they were locking up huge numbers of people, and then they're sending the statistics to the government and going, look, Bendigo's out of control. We need to install a curfew, which was 2 a.m. or whatever it was.
It is 2 a.m., yeah.
And so Bendigo again was the first. They tried. They hadn't even done it in Sydney yet. I think we were the first regional city. So we implemented a 2 a.m. curfew, and it basically was done to reduce police numbers, so the police could just control a close precinct, because all the other clubs that were open to 3 o'clock licenses, because of the 1 or 2 a.m. curfew, no one went there anymore because they got quashed because you got locked out.
Yeah.
And then it left it into the hands of 2 or 3 clubs, and it's basically destroyed the nightlife. And they did the same in Sydney and King's Cross.
Yes.
And the main reason they did it in King's Cross in Sydney was they wanted to, it was
King Hits and that.
Yeah, well, this is what they were using the excuse of King. You're going to find
King Hits, yeah.
People are going to get, it just happens. Like, people get hurt and stuff, but it's not, the lockout didn't achieve anything. But it was basically, they want to turn these nightclub precincts in the inner city into residential real estate. And they've done a bit of it.
Here they have.
In King's Cross and in Bendigo, one of the big clubs, old Studio 54, is now commercial real estate. And we've had another one just shut down, which is probably likely to be commercial real estate too. So,
yeah.
Again, Bendigo was the first. All right. Do you remember this article?
I do, yeah. Hey, says hay fever, asthma to factor into Bendigo streetscape strategies. Yes. That was on the November 7th, 2019. So COVID had just started in this period.
No, it hadn't started.
2019?
Well, we weren't in lockdown. That was end of 2019.
Oh, the virus was in China by then, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first we had thunderstorm asthma about a year before that too.
That's right.
I think they were trialing different spraying and stuff like that. And I grew up as a chronic asthmatic, and I was a rare one. I was the only kid in most of our classes that had asthma. I don't remember any of my mates having asthma as a kid, and now everyone's got asthma. Everyone's got hay fever.
Yeah.
which I think's, it's a mixture of the jabs, environmental toxins, spraying, and all that shit. But
Yeah,
so
diet.
then we've had this document. It's called Greening Greater Bendigo Strategy 2020.
2070.
It's got a huge. It's a 64-page document, but I'll just show you this bit. It's called Health Check Bendigo Current Urban Forest.
That's page 12 for those that are going to open that document. Page 12, that is, or 10 to 12.
Yeah,
so.
10 to 12.
Yep.
And again, so they got Bull Street here too. So what they're talking about, they're saying that these trees, certain trees within Bendigo aren't sustainable. And the first ones they hinted at was if you go on View Street in Bendigo, and they got those beautiful old, what trees are they? They're European trees, I think.
Yeah, in View Street.
View Street.
I know. Yeah.
So I can't find the old article, but there was one. So they're going to cut all those trees down. They've started cutting a lot of urban trees down. And the point is that the millimeter wave of the 5G gets blocked by the trees. So they have to eliminate these trees so the cells on the ground level can communicate with each other, and particularly people's houses, because they want to pierce into the house for surveillance. And remember they started doing all these new home, like the block and that.
Yes.
What do you think these shows are about? They're all about open, because you used to have corridors.
Yeah,
the old school old corridors.
Yeah, rooms off to the side.
Yeah,
now it's like an open classroom, but a house basically, isn't it?
And they sold this.
And there's not a lot of land anymore either. Like people's backyards are shorter. Like some people don't have backyards, and everyone's jammed in. They're all shoulder to shoulder. Like
but the key is they want everyone that builds a new house now, it's open living, open to the kitchen, living room, and the same thing. It's so they can surveil and spy on you.
Yes.
So anyway, it's just this hay fever article, and then if you go through this document, they show you all the trees that they've been cutting down around Bendigo and planting new ones, right, too. But they're very strategic about where they want it. And have you ever seen this one?
Yeah, I was reading it yesterday. Bendigo joins counter-terrorism training. So why don't you tell us about this one?
So it's my belief that they were going to. So it says, they did a mock terrorist kidnapping 37 people at a Commonwealth Games event, which is pretty funny.
So I think it was the year after this. 2006 was the Commonwealth Games we had here in Melbourne, Victoria. And then we had a few events here in Bendigo, remember?
Was it 06?
It was 06, yeah.
Yeah, so
that's literally coming out a few months before it.
And they did a number of counterterrorism training events. They did another one involving, I think it was a terrorist activity on a bus stop. And I don't think this plan will go ahead, but I think this was the original plan, and it was going to be used with the mosque thing, right wing extremists. But if you look at this bit here, this is 2005. I've mentioned this guy many times. State Police Minister Tim Holding. Now, do you remember Tim Holding?
I remember the name.
So Tim Holding, he is on the Strong Cities Council. He's one of the, what do you call him? I don't know. He's a fucking
board member or something, or
not
executive or something.
Anyway, he's one of the key guys within the Strong Cities network. He lives in London now, but he's a former, he was police minister and he was emergency services minister. And when he came in, it was after the 9/11 period.
Yeah.
So he went over and met with, trying to think of the guy's name. He's the guy who he set up. He owns all the body scanners at the airports. Chertoff.
Yes. Yep.
So Chertoff, one of the key guys behind 9/11 and a Zionist, avid Zionist, Tim Holding went over to America, met with the State Department, and this is when they started bringing in all the counterterrorism legislation where we're having fake terrorist attacks all the time. So Tim Holding there was orchestrating this event in Bendigo. Will they still do it? It's linked to the Commonwealth Games. I don't know. Well, we've seen this terrorist attack now. Oh, not terrorist. We've seen the right-wing extremists in Queensland.
Will they do something in Victoria?
So this is just one to keep your eye on too. Could they still pull off a false flag terrorist attack in Bendigo? Potentially. I don't know, we probably don't need to. This doesn't really go into Agenda 21. I just put in do you remember this one? The IBAC investigation exposes corruption at Bendigo Health. Now, this guy, I actually had a friend who was a PA to the CEO of Bendigo Health.
Yeah.
And it was mass money laundering going on. So they built that new hospital too. That was again under Andrew's government as a smart hospital. But there was massive money laundering and corruption going on. I think he was even doing up his own house with the
it's in the article. Yeah, it's in the article.
It was a lot worse than that. And the friend that I had worked there, there was serious threats that he made to her as she was exposing some of the corruption going on at okay.
Obviously we're not here to push fear and stuff, but like, Dale, how far do you see this going? Like, how far do you see them pushing this? I know it's a hard question, but how do you?
Well, they want net zero. So they want zero carbon farming by 2030. I don't even know how that's possible.
No.
They want zero carbon emissions by 2030 and 100% electric vehicles by 2030. So we got 7 years
to hand our cars back.
And the thing is, if you look at Bendigo, it's not like Melbourne where you can implement a smart city there. We've got people that live out on the outskirts of towns and regions and stuff. You're not in a bicycle zone if you're out in Ginnerton or whatever.
No.
And this is what they started doing when did they do the call to highway up? I think about 2010 as well.
Yeah, around the same time they did the smart schools with the education plan. It was the same time. They did the same thing together. Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the smart rail that's supposed to run from Melbourne up to the Gold Coast, it doesn't go through Bendigo. It goes Melbourne, Shepparton, Albury up that way. But the way I've looked at it is like Melbourne is going to be this huge mega city that may possibly extend right up to Bendigo. They're going to have that hub, and then following the rail hub, because they extended the Calder Highway in about 2010, and that part of Agenda 21 was basically destroy all the rural towns from the old Calder Highway. We used to stop at all the towns, go to Woodend and all that. Yeah. Whereas now it's just bang.
Straight through.
And America did this years ago, where you can drive the whole one end of the country to the other and never go through a town.
Yeah, well, I went over to American.
Well, what do you see? Wendy's, McDonald's, KFC, Taco Bell,
Dunkin' Donuts, all of them.
And they
not any local diners or any local cafes or anything, just all
franchise. Well, unless you want to do the old routes. But yeah, so that's part of the. So I think Bendigo actually extends onto the Greater Melbourne as part of this huge mega city that they have planned. And then if you look around the COVID time too, one of the main things they quashed, they made sure there was no local sport. And they have destroyed these towns. Like, you look at all the footy clubs are all going down there.
And the cricket clubs too. Because there's a cricket league that folded only a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And I think it was Upper Loddon or one of those cricket leagues folded.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So I'll do the last one.
Drag.
And of course, Bendigo Council does drag queen fucking story time. A terrifying picture here. Those looks on Spotify. So they run the Bendigo Pride Festival. So now again, we're not against gays and fucking trans, like whatever. But this is an evident, clear part of Agenda 21, the destruction of culture and society. And pushing the pedophilia agenda too. So of course Bendigo Council's involved in that. That's about all the document. I could keep going for it. I had some other ones in here that were a bit unrelated.
Yeah,
we can
touch on them.
They're not Agenda 21, but
just as a summary while you get that up, do you see how do you see this playing out in the next 12 to 18 months? Are they going to really ramp this up? What are your
as you said, with the net zero, going towards net zero, the only way that's possible, people going, we can't mine enough cobalt in the Congo to produce enough of these batteries, and we don't have enough energy. Well, the plan was to kill about 90% of you, so they don't need to build all these cars. It's only, and even what's his name? Malcolm Roberts has kind of mentioned this in the Senate. He's like, how are you going to bring everyone over to electric vehicles within 7 years? And the whole point is that you won't be here.
Yep.
And fuck, man, the amount of people I've spoken to in the last 3 weeks that are seriously, seriously sick and probably in danger of dying if they take another jab. So how do I think it's going to go? It won't eventuate. No. How far will it be pushed? I don't think they can even implement or build the infrastructure within that short period of time. It's not going to. I think a lot of it's going to be exposed next year. I think next year they're going to hammer all these agendas as quick as possible.
Yeah,
they can't do it in that time frame anyway, and we're seeing their plan, but how far it goes, we'll find out too. But like, I'll try and find a link to the next Bendigo Council meeting, because they've got another one of these about green and Bendigo.
Yeah, it's
what's the one? Anyway, yeah, we'll link that if we can.
Yeah, if we do that, if we find it. Just to wrap, I guess just to wrap things up. Bendigo being the forefront of this, and there's strong and smart cities. Like Bendigo is both strong and smart.
Yeah, they're signed on to both, and ICLE, everything.
Yeah. Got anything else there?
The other one was that they were a bit kind of like conspiratorial pedophilia related. Should we leave them, or should we?
Right, let's leave them. Do the next one. Part 3. Sort of having home some agenda stuff here, but
like again, to me, Bendigo's an interesting place. Even though it was originally called Sandhurst.
Yes, it was.
I can't trace back to where in England. There's Sandhurst in England, but I don't know why they changed it to why it was called Sandhurst. But to me, like sand is crystalline, right?
Yep.
It's form of crystal. To me, Bendigo is the crystal city because it's built on a massive gold reef that runs pretty much north to south, and it's also Bendigo's all quartz, right? So that's where you get gold. So it runs on a huge quartz reef, and quartz is crystal.
Yep.
Which is
clear quartz for those out there that have crystals.
Yeah, so it's like highly compressed energy. So to me, it's a massive energetic intersection in this place too. And that's kind of what I was going to go into that out to Melville Caves area.
Yep.
Into that girl that got abducted.
You could
out there, but we don't need to. But it was very interesting that I won't go there, but like there was a girl that got abducted out to one of the key sacred sites just out, probably was it 50 minutes from Bendigo?
Yeah.
Out to the west.
Inglewood way.
It was very interesting that she got taken out to that area, and the abuse that was going on out there was satanic in nature. But we might leave the other one about Solomon Street and all the.
Yeah.
We'll leave like the occult symbology. I don't know, mate. What I've spoke the whole time. What do you want to say?
Nah, I was just going to say, like, with all this stuff that's going on, we're not here to promote fear. We're here to make you aware of what's actually going on here, and these greater plans are for a greater agenda, which has been playing out for the last, 3 years, probably longer. But I was only awake in 2020, so I was reading all this stuff over the last couple of years, and it's very easy to see, and you can pick up on their buzzwords. And we're not here to promote fear. We're trying to make you aware of what's going on here, and I feel like we've done that today. So is there anything else you want to say, Dale, before we wrap things up? Maybe give people a positive message after you just hammered them with some fear.
I would just,
I can't see this.
What do you do? Like when these things they're all being implemented through local council, you're like, well, what do you do? Right. You can you spread awareness, or you can go into the councils, approach these people. Most councils have open. The Bendigo Council, you can type your question prior to the thing, and they actually have to acknowledge it. Or if you can get a petition going, I know it's kind of fruitless to some extent, but like it's just good to see. A lot of these councils, they have no fucking idea about this agenda, right? They're just playing out. They're doing what they're told because of all these initiatives that they've signed on to. But it would be good. What I'm actually saying, in like Lord of the Rings and all these other movies, right? When it's getting to the crescendo at the end, like Lord of the Rings is like Aragorn's having his fight, and then they switch to Gandalf's having his fight, and like there's all these battles going on at the end while Frodo or whatever's trying to. But there's heaps of movies like that. They just keep crossing between. And the way I see that, because I heard someone speaking about the other day, and they were talking about in America, we got to go to the US Capitol and we got to take down the government. And he's going, no, your battle's in your local area. And that's how I saw it, that if everyone is fighting against their own thing, it's kind of like that's what happens in the movie. Everyone's taking on their own battles to defeat the centralized figure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, and like I'm full of shit because I haven't been to any of these. Do you know what I mean? Taking them on too, but like if people want to do that, it's just call them out on their bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's so ridiculous now. They're pushing it so quick.
Mm.
Just make a fucking joke of them.
Yeah.
Because I think if anyone needs to be held accountable, because we always look to freaking state government, federal,
higher up,
all these people,
forum.
But it's like, no, these local councillors, they are more culpable and more culpable than the rest of them. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on today, Dale. We probably talk for the next, 3 or 4 hours about this stuff, but it's just a lot there, and I feel like we've given people some information to go away with. One thing I'll add too is if you want to fight the system and that, become healthy and become the best version of yourself too. Become independent from the system, so you aren't relying on the system to cram you in like sardines. There are ways around things, and finding your sole purpose, finding your purpose in life is one way of fighting the system, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd agree.
Become healthy, and
I've been getting healthier too, and it's like I don't know, you're more useful.
You are more useful. You got more energy. You can be whoever you want to be, and
I'm a work in progress, brother. I'm getting there. But...
Yeah, we're gonna fix Dale up on some coffee, some darts, and that. But he had a small cup the other day for those that saw it, so we are cleaning up slowly, aren't we?
Yeah, getting there.
Progression, not perfection, and that's how we'll finish. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you for listening wherever you are, and I'll see you guys real soon.
Thanks, mate.